Hey friends, Mike Myers here with the Songwriting for Guitar podcast, episode number 59, Songwriting Critique with Josh Seawell. Now today you're hearing a behind-the-scenes conversation I had with longtime professional mixer and friend Josh Seawell of Seawell Studios. We were preparing to give a song critique to Songwriting for Guitar students, and we had a really cool chat before we started. We were talking about what aspects are important to us in a song, our own beginnings and experiences when it came to songwriting and production, along with the good and bad critiques that motivated us in our own development. I think the most unfortunate scenario is when someone doesn't want to grow and is afraid to hear what they benefit from working on. So that being said, being open to a song critique deserves big kudos, seriously, big kudos for taking these steps and being confident enough to receive constructive or even negative feedback. For songwriters who have never had a song critique or they're just frankly intimidated on sharing their songs, I want to give you an inside look on the mindset and process so you can understand how to best prepare when you ask for one. Song critiques are one of the most important things you can do for your songwriting development. To help you get in the mindset, here's a bit of our conversation with Josh Seawell. Josh, we've worked on 60 songs. I don't know how many at this point.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You're awesome at mixing. How long have you been doing this too? I know you've talked a little bit about your story, but I'd love to know how many years has it been that you've just been a professional mastering engineer?
I have been getting paid to do this since I was in high school. Honestly, and I'm 42 now. I hope that's surprising to people when they see this. But I started getting paid when I was around 14 or 15 to record bands. I was in a band myself, and we were recording and putting out music. And I don't know why, but I was attracted to the recording side from the beginning. Yeah. It just kind of went hand in hand for me. And my band practiced in my parents' basement. And so I always had all of the equipment, left there in between the practice times for me to experiment. I would record all these cover songs of me playing every instrument and things like that. So, so I guess if you add up that many years, it's probably pushing 30 here soon.
Dude, I love that. What was your band's first name?
The first band was called Nameless, oddly enough. How's that for a 90s grunge band name for you?
I love that.
Yeah.
What I love even more is the stuff was there, and it's more or less like you were testing out your the equipment was there to just test out, and I'm just gonna record it. I'm gonna see what this is like. You had to just do it too. It's funny how some people are they think it's well, I studied this process. It's studying the process is great. And then it's implementing the process and starting to practice and put it into play.
You're exactly right. And the main thing for anybody that's interested in getting better at mixing is that more than likely you're going to be really bad at it to start with. And there's several factors that have to do with that don't have to do with your talent or your ability. It's often your listening environment. You see these panels behind me, they're everywhere in the room. They all serve a purpose. So sometimes you see all the memes online about the guy goes out to the car to hear his mix and he's crying, because it sounds so bad. So just know that when you start, it's totally normal to be not only not good, but to be pretty terrible at it. And but try to use that to drive you to get better. Because there was actually one of my best friends in college. I've never even told him this. But we were still putting out cassette singles in the late 90s because CDs were still fairly expensive to get produced.
Yeah.
And so if you did a single, you would still do a cassette. And so I had released a single that, had a B-side on the back. And we were listening to it in my car in college. And I'm so excited to share this song because it's the best thing that I had ever done. And one of my best friends, who was also a musician, we're listening, and he goes, "Man, why does this not?" He's like, "I love it. Don't get me wrong, but why does this not sound like stuff on the radio. And dude, it just crushed me. And of course he didn't mean it. We were roommates. He was one of my best friends, but that one statement, even though I had already been mixing it for several years and getting better, that statement drove me to just be like, you know what? I never want to hear somebody say that again about something that I do. Yeah. And it just built this crazy obsession to like, I have to figure this out.
With that story, like that mix was your best mix because where you were currently, it's like you'll get better. And it's, you mentioned that story. I remember like a couple of months ago, the first time I had written with Brittany Fance, we wrote a song that we never did anything with. And I was like, why was that? Such a good song. And so I dusted off my old hard drive, I plugged it in, I opened up the project file. First 5 seconds, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I know why. And I just stopped. I was like, because it wasn't that good. Then we wrote later on, we did a couple other songs that like produced, I mixed it, and I was like, well, what happened between then and there? Oh, a whole bunch of other songs, like a whole bunch of other songs. But it was funny at the time when I made that was me at the best of my ability, like really on my A game. Yeah. But it still was like, you know, the person was like, she was like, I'm just not crazy about it yet. And I don't know why. And maybe that was her nice way of being like, I think the mix is terrible. And she just didn't want to tell me. Right. Later on, it got better. But I'm so glad that I did that because I was able to see progress. So the fact that you're even submitting songs and you're doing feedback is great because that means if you're willing to take feedback, you're willing to grow. The ones that are willing to grow are the ones that are going to be just fine. That's the thing that's really important. There's a lot of people that resist feedback because it's either ego, they really just don't want to hear the truth, or I think those are the two things. They don't want to hear the truth because they're worried it's a bad thing, which it isn't. You can use it. Yeah. And sometimes it's an ego thing, but I know everyone that's submitted here, it's not an ego thing. You're ready to grow. So take this, you know, these critiques and use them for future songs to keep it in mind. I think that's my general thought about critiques that I think are super important because any critique that I got, I just filed away in my head. So when I was working on the next song, that's how you know when somebody's mixing or producing something, or like, how do you know this and this? It's like, well, one time somebody told me this, and this, and I just filed it away.
Well, and when it's your art and, you know, your lyrics and your story and everything, and it gets critiqued, I mean, that's a weird thing. It's maybe even worse than like somebody critiquing you physically, you know, because you could get a haircut or like do something, you know, but when it's your song, it's like, oh man, and I've already released it. It's out there. But, you know, the biggest thing with why it stuck is because I knew what he was saying was true. Mm-hmm. And it came from somebody that I knew cared a lot about me, but it stuck because I said, you know what, he's right. I mean, it hurt and it made me, you know, a little bit angry. I just internalized it. You know, we didn't get into an argument about it or anything. But when I spent just a couple of minutes thinking about it, I was like, you know what? It's upsetting me because I know he's right. And I don't know how to fix this right now, but I'm going to figure this out. I don't want to feel like this again.
The fact that you said too, you will feel a mixed bag of emotions, would be like, this is great. Oh, I'm angry, I'm annoyed. And it's like, but that's okay. There's a difference between critiquing and someone that just does a cut down. So if somebody has ever said to you like, oh, this sucks, that's not a critique. That is someone, usually it's someone that wants to do what you're doing. And they aren't doing it because they're afraid of the critique. They're afraid they may not, the rejection, all those emotions. And their only solution is not to pursue the thing, but instead cut you down in hopes that like crushes your drive and your energy to go do the thing. That's not a critique. That's someone that has emotional issues that needs to be worked out. A critique is like, hey, I like where you're going with this, but these things, if you keep this in mind for next time, it will help make the process smoother. And I think that's the end goal, is to have a process. Like why I work with Josh is because he has an amazing process for mixing. I know that when I give him something, like what I'm going to get will elevate it because my goal is like syncs. I want syncs. And I want to, whoever I'm pitching with, whoever the artist is who we're working with that's going to be pitching it, to feel like the quality of where it is sonically is high.
Well, and going back to what my friend said in regard to sync, a music supervisor may love you as a person. You may have met them and gone to a retreat or something, and you give them a song that's written well, produced well, performed well, but not mixed well.
Ooh, yeah.
And if you don't finish it like that, what they're going to do when they pull it up, they're going to go, you know what? This doesn't sound like what's, on the radio or on Spotify or whatever you would say now, to be that term. But a bad mix can keep you from getting a sync for sure.
It's like half shaving the face. It's just like you were
Yes.
there. It was almost done. And you're like, hey, I'm ready to go out. Right. And it's like, something is not right. That's the thing. It's all aspects of the process are important, not just the songwriting aspect, not just the production aspect, but not just the mixing. They all have to work together. All right, so I want to leave you with a few thoughts, starting with some questions to answer for yourself before reaching out for a critique. What is the song for? Think about it. Is it for yourself, a particular artist, licensing? Why are you creating it? What is my emotional intention behind that song? Ask yourself, who is listening to it and what is this audience like? And number 4, what is your reference for production? That is so important. Remember, a lot of professionals will tell you exactly what you need to hear, but often people, they're just not ready to hear it. Keep an open mind. And remember, we are all learning. I still am. If you're looking for real guidance, know it's a process which takes time and practice, and you'll thrive with that mindset. Trust me. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to head over to songwritingforguitar.com right now, because guess what? We have a 5-day boot camp that is coming up. If you're struggling in your songwriting right now, you're frustrated with your instrument, if you feel like you're getting stagnant, like you've plateaued and you need something to push you over the edge, guess what? These 5 days will. I'm going live every single day, answering your questions, guiding you through my process. And guess what? It's so freaking easy to enroll in this right now. Just go over to songwritingforguitar.com and claim your spot in the 5-day bootcamp. Everything is kicking off May 19th. And that does it for this week's episode. It was edited and produced by Chris Fafalius. I'm Mike Myers. Thanks for listening.